My name is Jason DaPonte. I run a small digital company in London called The Swarm. And before that, I ran a mobile website that was kind of popular and was for a very large broadcaster's name I won't mention because it kind of sticks with me, but you can probably see it in my bio, and it's based in London, if that's not enough hints. And what I wanted to talk about was something that I'm actually kind of puzzling with at the moment, and I have a few projects that are trying to work with this piece of digital content that's out there that I think is being largely neglected, and that has a couple of different names, and I don't particularly like any of them, but for lack of better words, they are either called big data or the Internet of Things, or where those two sorts of things kind of come together. And the reason I got interested in it is because I was working with mobile for a long time. And when you say mobile, you automatically think of these things or things like these. But there was an article that I read about a year and a half ago, or a little over a year ago, that was saying that in the United States, AT&T and Verizon both had more things that were non-phone and non-human on their networks than they did have human subscribers using phones. So I started looking at what are these things. And actually, you're probably aware of a lot of them. There's things like sensors on water pipes to say if they're leaking. There's weather sensors. There's all sorts of little sensors and receivers that are transmitting information over the internet and creating lots and lots of knowledge about lots and lots of different things. But as content creators, as content makers, as documentary people, as news people, we're not really we're not really taking advantage of all of that information that's being created and working it into what we're doing. So I made an application recently. Well, actually, let me start drawing. So, like I said, we typically think of users with mobile phones when we think about mobile. So I started looking at what else is out there that people have, and I started to find things like Nike Plus, which is connected shoes. This is the first time I'm trying to do this diagram, by the way, so if I fall on my face, bear with me. And then I started to think about what else is out there. I'm really quite a bad artist, so bear with me. This is a car. And we're getting to the point where we're starting to see cars getting connected and traffic systems getting connected. We're starting to see a world of in-app cars. So just in terms of some of the stuff that I've worked on where we're just starting to try to play with this, I made an application recently that is for mobile phones that helps people get refunds when the Underground in London, the tube, makes them late. And the way we're doing that is hooking into the data about which trains are running late and what the expected journey times are and all of the rest of that. So that's kind of cool as a mobile phone application, but what I thought is actually it should be integrated in the Metro card system, because that's completely digital and has access to all of the information, and it's official, as opposed to mine, which someone last night actually called it like a little bit of a torpedo. So why isn't this the connected thing? Why are we putting everything onto the phones? Why isn't the data just, this live data right here? So moving on to cars, I'm working with a company that's creating apps for cars, and what we're looking at is where are the cars going when people go on scenic drives, and how can we share those scenic drives with other people? Because there's more data coming both into and out of these experiences. So we're starting to see data coming out of and connecting to all of the things in people's lives, not just their phones. We're starting to see it in the objects around people's lives and that they own and that they use to move. I also had an interesting experience recently where I drove through a stop sign at 12 miles per hour, and there was a little camera on that stop sign watching me that went off and told the police, this car with this guy drove through the traffic thing at 12 miles per hour. Great piece of information. I'm glad that one wasn't published, but this is just starting, this is trying to show you how there's an ecosystem of things that are connecting up and creating a lot of data. And has anyone seen a news report or a documentary that's making use of that in any sort of big way other than maybe some stealth statistics. Not Pirate Bay, yeah, they're like right at the forefront of this, and that's a very cool project. But there's a lot of everyday stuff that we could be finding out about. And then, you know, when you start thinking about all of these things, you realize that actually there's a lot of data being created by traffic systems, public safety systems, educational systems, policing systems. And what I'm trying to figure out is, you know, how do these sorts of things connect? Now, where am I? So one of the big problems that I'm starting to realize here is that there isn't really an interface for getting at this data. There isn't a real way for average producers, average content makers, et cetera, to get at it. You have to find it, and when you find it, it's hard to use and it's hard to deal with. And the thing that was really a breakthrough for the internet and then for mobile is the App Store on mobile, or the marketplace on mobile, and Netscape for web pages, right? So the internet was around for a really long time, but before it became easy to use, graphical and accessible through almost any PC, it was kind of over here in the corner, and that's where I feel like we are now. I think we need to find a way, and it may be through browsers, it may be through devices, I don't know yet, I don't want to presuppose that, but I think that's something that we really need to get our hands on before that happens. And one of the things that I've been talking about with editorial people is this idea that when we think about trying to access this data and tell stories with it, we're going to need, do you guys know that pyramid? I'm sure people do. I'm going to probably get it wrong now too, where you have data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Did I leave something out of that? Has anyone seen this pyramid before? I think I left a layer out. But anyway, this is what happens when I work without slides. Anyway, the idea is that you have data down here, and as more and more things get done with it, bits of it turn into wisdom for people when they internalize it. And in the past, I think basically editorial people have worked taking data, turning it into information, giving that to people and telling them what the knowledge in the information is. And then users internalize that, and that's the wisdom that they take away from something. And I think now we're working in a world where content makers' jobs are more based down here in the pyramid, and the audience are creating the knowledge for each other, very much like what you were just saying, is, the roles are shifting, and then people walk away with their personal wisdom. So if our jobs are down here, that's actually much, much harder to deal with. And so what I'm talking about is what I would say are story systems, S-Y-S-T. I've lost the ability to spell this morning, sorry. And what that means is that we are having to create applications where we're taking data in, we're allowing people to do stuff with it, and then, but we won't be able to predict every outcome. So we have to kind of create the party that you were talking about and create the conditions and make it easy for people, but we can't know exactly what's going to happen, and we can't try and control it too tightly. And that requires us to understand both the content and the software in a very different way. And I'm not sure that anyone's completely cracked how that works yet, but one of the projects that I'm just starting work on is about looking at how do you connect memories with physical things and then turn those into stories. And I can't say a huge amount about it, but it's looking at a historical event and the memories that they've attached to real world things. And I think that may be most of what I was going to talk about. So one of my hunches in this space is that we need to look to the world of service design. And service design is kind of a buzzword at the moment, but and I kind of just thought, isn't this like user experience design? Isn't this like user-centered design? Isn't this, just the latest fad? But the thing that I found really interesting is that it can be applied way outside of the digital world. And the best example I've heard of it is the post, mail. Everyone knows that if you want to get a letter from here to there, there's a certain set of rules. And they're very, very simple. You write the address on the outside, you write the postcode or the zip code, you put the right number of stamps on it, and you go to a box, which in the UK is red. Are they red here? Yellow. They're blue in America. But you know, everyone knows a post box or a mailbox when you see it. You put it in, and then magically, on the other side, it comes out the other side. Now, they don't control the story. They don't control the content. They don't control the sizes very much. But there are some rules around the sizes. But there's a huge amount of complexity behind it, and there's a huge amount of letters. And they always get to the right place, or 99% of the time they get to the right place. And it's that type of system that we need to be thinking about for moving this big data that I'm talking about around and getting people to interact with it. We need to find a level of simplicity that delivers a huge amount of wisdom and meaning and disguises all the complexity in the background and hides all of the data that you don't need that can be coming at you. Because when you start thinking about this amount of data, when you start thinking about the fact that there's more things like sneakers and cars and stop signs and all the rest of it that are now talking in this giant kind of silent conversation people are talking about, being overwhelmed by content and data is going to be way too easy. You know, if you look at Twitter, just kind of browse it, there's absolutely no way that you can get any meaning out of it. You have to start applying filters, you have to start following, you have to create lists. So, and that's like small data compared to this. So I'll leave you with that and hope to talk to you later.
But I always have a comment. I just want to say, when you talk about the pyramid, that's also what we do when we work with museums, that's the storytelling, everything. We kind of facilitate, we get people more down in the raw material. We used to have it as behind the scenes. That was kind of the first step we took in fiction documentary. So that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, this can apply to all sorts of types. I mean, this could apply with newspapers even, right? Like, so with Watergate, they looked at the data, they turned that into information that various different things had gone wrong. That pointed to the fact that the president had carried out a crime, and then people did what they did.
And what you're saying about filters, we used to be a storyteller, the one who did the filters. We did the focus. Right now, people do the filtering. So we have to kind of find out what's going to be the creative roles.
Do you know Patch Bay?
Yes,
Isn't that what you're talking about as a platform?
kind of, but it's not good yet. You still have to be pretty damn geeky to figure it out. And it's still not that easy to use. It's not like it doesn't take the step that Netscape did for the web.
No, but could it be usable as something, as a part of it?
I think it could be the beginning of it, definitely. When I give a longer presentation, I've actually got screenshots of some very cool things that they've used.
Jason, can you tell what it is?
Oh, so Pachubi,
It's pronounced Patch Bay.
Patch Bay, okay, is a website that lets you both share and pick up information from sensors and this type of stuff, which they have done some very cool stuff, but it's very, no pun intended, patchy right now. They have information about some things and not about others. It can be difficult to connect to that. So it's definitely a beginning, but it's not mainstream yet, and I don't think it's as easy as it needs to be. But it's definitely the beginning, absolutely. They did some really cool stuff with looking at radiation after the earthquake in Japan and that type of stuff. So it's definitely a beginning.